Do this class a little differently than other classes. I'm trained in accessible yoga, and a big part of that is teaching a posture in multiple levels. And we don't mean like beginner, intermediate, advanced. We mean like on the floor, sitting, standing. So when you offer multiple ways of doing any given pose, it makes yoga asana or posture a lot more accessible. People can do yoga in their bed when you are going with this approach. It also kind of reinforces the idea that yoga isn't purely a physical practice. It's not something you have to go to a studio for. It's something you can do at any point in your day, throughout your life. It's kind of integrating this idea of living yoga. So I will be teaching in a way where I kind of lay out different options. So this is going to be like a choose your own adventure class. And we'll start with kind of tuning in and checking in with where you're at. Like maybe you're feeling very balanced between your yin and yang energy. And I'll talk about what those, how those manifest. Or maybe you feel like it's very obvious to you that you're feeling very pulled one direction. So once you kind of check in and see where you're at, you can, throughout your practice, choose which variations you'd like to use. So kind of getting the best of both worlds. If you're looking for that calming, low to the ground practice, you can have that. If you're looking for the more energetic, warming practice, you can choose that too. So this is also an exercise in being really discerning, listening to your body, maybe not just reacting and doing what you think you want to do, instead maybe thinking of what could help bring you more balance. So if you know you're always really competitive in a practice, or if you really like getting really warm and sweaty in a practice, maybe today you challenge yourself and take the more passive approach to invite that oppositional energy in and work towards finding that balance. So if you're not familiar with yin and yang, it's yin represents like earth energy, yang represents like the sky energy, or the heavens or cosmos as another way of thinking of that. So yin, moon, yang, sun. Yin, internal expansion, yang, external expansion. Both are expansive. I think sometimes I want to pigeonhole yin into being kind of more like drawn in. But there's, we're all complex inside too. So there's expansion there as well. Yin is cooling and calming. Yang would be warming and energizing. Yin is a slower approach. Yang is quicker, both done with intentionality. So just because you're moving quicker doesn't mean you're not aware. Yin is associated with like death. Yang would be birth. Yin, feelings, very right brain approach. Yang would be like thinking, left brain. Let's see. Oh, I read this earlier and I thought it was cool. I hadn't thought about it this way. But yin is like the function and yang is the structure. So both are like activating, like yin isn't just about being passive. There's still intentionality, like I said. There's still like the function. You're like carrying something out, where yang is the structure of it all. And yin is more linear. Yang is more circular. Okay, so just some things to keep in mind. Maybe start thinking about how those things manifest in you. Things change day to day, so maybe you don't see like a broad pattern in your life. Maybe you're just focusing on today and how you're feeling. It's up to you. So I know that kind of all the things I've offered so far are very vague, and that might make you uncomfortable. So if this is like outside of your comfort zone, just try and lean into it. This is all about you making choices. So you're in charge. I'm just offering all of this information, and the next hour or so will be maybe different than yoga classes you've practiced. So I'm excited to share this approach with you. And I haven't done it in a while, so let's see how it goes. I wanted to start with some breath work, as always, to help us ground, but also invite just this idea of balance. So we're going to start with alternate nostril breath. I think we did this a couple weeks ago. If you're not familiar, I'll show you all the options. So alternate nostril breath is supposed to be very balancing for the energy channels in the bodies. We're basically closing off one side as we inhale, closing off, and then exhaling out the other. So inhaling through that same side you exhaled, close, exhale. So that'd be like one cycle. If you want to like go blow your nose beforehand, that's usually a good idea because it kind of like loosens up sinuses and stuff. Another benefit. So you can do that hand placement. I kind of tend to do this like hang loose hands and either use my second finger or pinky finger to close it off. Some people place their middle finger on the third eye and do that. With glasses, that's hard for me, but it might feel nice for you. You could also choose to work without the physical hand placement and visualize breath entering one side and exiting out the other. Just as effective, just another approach. And maybe you start with the hand placement and then you bring your hand down. That's fine. Sometimes when you're doing this, your arm gets a little tired. So you could always bring a hand underneath the elbow, or you can tuck chin to chest and continue like that. Okay, so that's our introduction to the alternate nostril breath. Now, first choice of the class, deciding how you would like to be positioned in your body. So you can lay flat on the ground. You can choose to sit on the floor with legs crossed or maybe kneeling. You can grab a chair. And if you are sitting in a chair for any of the postures that we do in this class, be really mindful. Like, I'm not very tall, so my legs are kind of they're not planted flat on the ground. If that's happening for you, slide a blanket underneath so your feet are firmly planted on the ground. You could also just scoot up a little bit so your feet are firmly planted on the ground. That's another option. You don't want to be rounding through the back when you're sitting in your chair. You want your spine to be tall. So throughout our class, I'll talk about posture a lot. I'll cue posture checking. And what I mean by that is elongating the spine. So as you inhale, lifting through the head and heart. As you exhale, root down through your points of contact with the earth. So my feet. And the chair is the extension of the earth. That's how we like to think of it. So also root down into the chair. You could also choose to do this standing, finding like more of a Tadasana stance. Just like in your chair, you want your feet to be planted firmly. I like to stand about hip distance for my feet. Maybe your alignment's a little closer depending on your bone structure. Rolling shoulders up, back, and down. Keeping your knees soft. And once you've found whatever posture you're going to work in, you can begin to work with your alternate nostril breathing, Nadi Shodhana. Inhaling through the left side, closing it off once you're all the way full, exhaling out the right. Inhaling through the right, closing off the right, exhaling completely out the left. Maybe pausing in that empty space before taking another deep inhale through the left side. Feel that lengthening through the spine on your inhales. Close left. Exhale through the right, rooting down into the earth. Inhale through right. Close off the right side and exhale left. Continuing at your own pace. Bringing all of your awareness to your breath. Maybe your breath becomes longer and slower as you continue. We'll go ahead and take one more cycle, ending with an exhale through the left nostril. Whenever you're finished, you can release the hands if you were using them. Hi, Charlotte. Cat sitting for a very loud cat. So from here, you can make any observations, noticing the effects of the alternate nostril breath, knowing that sometimes something really soothing for someone may not be for everyone. So just observing that experience, being present in your body as you breathe naturally, and maybe setting an intention to be really open to receiving open to observing, open to trying something new and different. And as you're ready, you can either choose to continue working with maybe closed eyes if that's where you are. Maybe you soften the gaze. And from here, we can start to invite some movement in your body. So maybe that's just wiggling fingers and toes. You can roll out wrists and ankles. Oh my goodness. Yeah. And then we'll start to do some cat-cows. So if you're lying on your back and you decide that you want to stay there, inviting that grounding energy, if you're wanting to keep this pretty cooling in your movements from your back, you'll inhale, reaching arms out into a T shape. And as you exhale, just give yourself a big hug. You can even bring chin to chest and round through the back of the neck. So you're lying flat on your back. You'll inhale to open through the heart. You can squeeze shoulder blades together, and exhale, give yourself a hug, maybe alternating which arm is on top. You can do this from a kneeling or seated position, as I am now, or if you're in a chair. Hands on tops of legs. You'll inhale, squeezing shoulder blades together, keeping the chin tucked as you open through the heart. As you exhale, I like to kind of cup my knees as I round through the back, tucking tailbone, peeling shoulder blades apart, tucking chin in. You're always welcome to take cat-cows from kneeling or a hands and knees position. That's the traditional version of the posture. You can switch between, you can try all of these out and then go back to one. It's a very free form class today. If you're standing, it'll be just like if you're lying down. A really cool way of thinking about adapting postures is just thinking of your body in space. So if you're lying on the ground, this is how you'd be with that variation, only now you're standing. Same thing. Give yourself a hug. Inhale, open. Exhale, round. So really breaking down the posture and trying to understand like what the essence of each posture is, what the benefits are. So for cat-cows, it's flexion and, what's the other word? Extension of the spine. So you can achieve that flexion and extension of the spine from any relationship to the ground. Reclined, seated on the floor, seated in a chair, standing. It's all the same motion, all the same benefits, only now we're opening it up to be more accessible for everyone. And you can weave it into your daily life. Like if you're at a desk, you can do this. You don't have to put on your yoga pants and get your mat out. All right, just a few more. Eventually coming through a neutral posture, whichever variation you're in. Take a few deep breaths. And as we do these check-ins with our breathing, it's also that posture check I talked about. Inhaling, lengthening through the spine. Exhaling, maintaining that length while rooting down. Awesome. Okay. So from here, we're going to move into some sun salutations. If you're craving an energetic and warming practice, and there are sun salutations that you are already familiar with and you'd like to go through, you can go right to that. If you'd like to see a variation of a sun salutation on the ground, this is one that I just kind of came up with earlier. So you can get like really creative with this. You can make up your own. So if you're on your back, so think about like you're standing. And if you have a wall handy, that'd be awesome because you could press your feet into the wall too and create like the sensation of grounding through the feet that you would get if you were standing. So you'll inhale, reach arms overhead. As you exhale, hug knees to chest, round through the back, chin to chest, head towards knees. This is mimicking our forward fold. Inhale to find your flat back. Reach your arms into that T-shape, knees over hips. As you exhale, lower the feet down and starting over. Inhaling, stretching the legs long, reaching arms overhead. Exhale, knees to chest, round through the back, chin to chest, forehead towards knees, curl into this little ball. Exhale, flat back, lower head onto the mat, arms come into that T shape. Find a 90-degree bend in the legs, root down through the low back if you want some more strength building and heat building here. Exhaling, lowering the feet down. Inhaling, starting that cycle over. Now you can always take more breaths per movement, especially if you're wanting a slower practice. Okay, so going through your sun salutations like that, if you are on the ground. I wish there were 3 of me. I could just show you all 3 at the same time. If you're in a chair, sun salutation. Make sure feet are planted. We'll inhale, reaching up, just like you would if you were standing. Exhale, swan diving forward, folding over the legs. Forward fold. Allow your head to be heavy. Inhale, flat back. Hands can be at shins. They can even be at the tops of the legs, squeezing shoulder blades together. Exhale to fold over the legs again. Then inhale through a flat back. Press into your feet just like you would if you were standing. Reach all the way up. Press down through the sits bones. Exhale, hands to heart. Do that once more. Inhale, root down through the feet and seat. Lift through the crown of the head. Exhale, swan dive forward. You can take your knees wide here if you'd like. If some of your body is like pressing into your legs too much, you can always take a wider stance to accommodate. Inhale, half lift, flat back, tuck the chin, gaze down and slightly forward. Exhale, lower. Inhale, press into your feet, reach all the way up. Exhale, hands to heart. Continuing like that. If you would like to do the standing variation, just like the other ones. Pressing down through your feet, inhale, reaching up. Exhale, dive forward. Inhale, half lift, flat back. Exhale, fold. Oh, and we're doing half sun salutation, so we're not stepping back. Inhaling halfway and then coming up. If you did want a more energetic practice, you could go through full sun salutations where you step back to plank, do cobra. So just working with these half sun salutations, getting the body a little warmer, a little just like more fluid feeling. You can go as slowly as you want. Any point, you can take a break. You can stay in your forward fold, whatever variation that is. Since I am having to walk through all these variations, you might be doing the same thing over and over again. That's fine. You could always choose to modify. You can choose to try the other variations. Okay, so once you're finished with this last one, we're going to make our way into a forward fold. So if you're on your back, you can hug knees into chest. Maybe you work on stretching one leg at a time in your forward fold. So breaking down the pose, like I said before, what are the benefits of the posture? Why do we do this posture? Forward fold, it's a big stretch for the back of the legs. It's also a nice spinal release. It's an inversion. So bringing heart over the head. Maybe you work with both legs up, waterfall variation. I think doing the alternating, extending one leg feels really good. If you have a strap here, that might be helpful. You could even put it over both legs. So that's the reclined variation. The seated variation, walk the legs long in front of you, root down through the heels. Keep your feet flexed so your knees have a slight bend. Inhale to grow tall and exhale, fold over the legs any amount. So imagining that and if you have the wall in front of you, great, press your feet into a wall. But imagining that there's the ground underneath your feet and you're pressing into the ground, just how you would if you're doing this standing. Another benefit of this posture is low back stretching, releasing tension in the low back. You're doing this from a seat, in a chair. So I'm walking through 4 variations of this one. Just like if you were sitting on the ground, you inhale, lift up tall, exhale, fold. Hands can come to the floor, maybe they come to blocks or somewhere on the legs. Allow your head to hang heavy. So in this one, we're not getting so much the back of the leg stretch, but we are still getting the low back stretch. If you had a bolster or something, you could prop it underneath your head and stretch your legs long. You can try this variation, but this is a lot more active than it looks because you're having to maintain that balance in your body with your legs long leaning over. But imagine that there's like a pillow underneath my forehead that I can lean into. And if you're doing this from standing, inhale to rise, exhale to fold. Pressing into your feet. Sending your weight into the balls of the feet. You're welcome to hold this. Maybe you've been holding this already for a long time. If you want to add some movement from whatever variation you're in, on your inhales, you can lift up to a flat back. So if you're on your back, you would just release your legs down for that. And exhale, find your fold again. So if you're wanting a little more movement, you can do that. You could even find some like fluidity, like wave-like motions here. Just spend 3 to 5 more rounds of breath wherever you are. Feeling free to add in any of those half sun salutations throughout their practice. Maybe you go through some full sun salutations if you're wanting more heat. And eventually coming out of whatever variation you're working with. And we'll move into Warrior 2. So again, breaking down the posture. What are the benefits? Why do we do it? So in a standing Warrior 2, we're getting this big hip opener, right? And actually, before we go into this, let's warm ourselves up a little bit. Let's do a few forward folds with legs wider. So wherever you were, just walk your legs a little bit wider, and we'll do the same thing just for, let's do like 5 rounds of breath. So you can bring hands down if you're in a chair, maybe you find blocks. Maybe hands are at hips and you're just working with opening through the hips here. If you're on your back, this will look more like a happy baby. But you can keep your knees bent. So we're just doing wide forward folds. It's nice to kind of prep the body before we get into really deep hip openers, in my opinion. So maybe you're working with this legs wide variation of forward fold on your back. Maybe you're sitting on the ground with legs wide, folding forward. Again, adding in movement if you'd like. Maybe you'll crawl hands one way and the other way. If you're on your back, you can kind of rock left and right. If you're in the chair, like I showed you, you could just take the knees wide, root down through the sits bones and feel that opening in the hips. And if you're standing, just heel toe the feet wide and fold forward. Hands can be anywhere along the legs. Avoid putting pressure on the knees from the hands. Awesome. Maybe you do a little movement. You're standing, you're sitting, oiling up the hip joints. On an inhale, we'll lift out of our fold. If you're lying on your back, you'll just stretch the legs long again. Take an optional vinyasa flow if you're wanting to build heat in the body and be more energetic in this practice. And now we'll get into Warrior 2. So, I was kind of showing you a traditional Warrior 2 standing posture. Hips are really open. Both feet are on their, like in their own lane here. So we're squeezing glutes. So you're getting strengthening in the glutes and in the core, belly's hugging in. You're pressing into your feet, so your legs are really active, but you're getting that big hip opener. You open through the arms. You can get the neck stretch by looking over the front hand. You relax the shoulders. So we're going to really choose to focus on the hip opening aspect of this pose. So you can choose to hold Warrior 2. You might be here for a long time. This might be really challenging as I walk through the other options. You're always welcome to come out of it, maybe take a wide leg forward fold for breaks, or you could choose to try one of the other variations if after a little while this becomes more than you want. Okay, so if you're sitting down, just think about doing the posture from a seat. So what does that look like? Opening one hip and making kind of like a right angle with the legs. And if you stand up and try and do Warrior 2 and then sit down, you're like, oh, this actually feels the same in my hips. So you're really just walking the legs wide. I like trying to do this 90-degree angle. It feels really good in my body, and I get a really big stretch in the front, or this left hip. You can open through the arms, look over the front hands, still engaging your core, still engaging the glutes to keep you steady here. Pressing into both feet, just how you would if you were standing, relaxing shoulders and face. If you want to add movement from standing or seated, you can lean forward, bringing left forearm to left thigh, reach over with right arm, finding extended side angle, And find a flow, reaching back. Hand can come onto the chair, reversing your warrior. If you are standing, all right. Final option is from the ground. If you haven't already noticed, it's really like all the same. So as I show you these things, I'm really just showing you the same thing from just different relationships to the ground. So you would lay back. Think about how your legs are in Warrior Two. One is open, one is stretched long. So whatever hip you're opening, we've been doing the left side for all the other ones, begin to bend the left knee, and it's almost like half frog pose, but you're lying on your back. Or even almost like tree pose, which we're going to get to in a little while. So stretching your leg long. If you want a deeper stretch, you can angle the right leg so it's coming out to the right a little bit instead of being in line with your hip. You can bring your left hand on the inside of the left thigh, or you can keep your arms stretched out how you would if you were standing. Look over the left fingers for the next stretch. So you're still getting your hip opener, only now there's not as much muscular effort. It's not as active of a posture. You're able to receive the benefits of it, the essence of the pose, but without exerting as much energy, without, it's just like a more passive approach. You're still getting the benefits of the stretch, but without the muscular effort. Wherever you are, taking just a few more rounds of breath. If you're working with this variation on the ground and your left knee is hovering off the ground like mine is, you can always slide a bolster or pillow or blankets underneath the left leg for some added support, because arguably this is even a deeper hip opener because gravity is drawing the left leg towards the ground. Like I feel this stretch a lot more intensely on the ground than I did when I was standing or sitting. Okay, and we'll switch sides. So choosing how you'd like to be, I would recommend doing it the same on both sides for this, like the same level. So just like before, if you're on your back, you'll stretch both legs long and then begin to bend through the right knee, drawing it up in towards, kind of aiming like just towards the right arm if your arm's in a T shape. Maybe you kind of scoot the left leg a little wider than the hip, only if it feels good. Maybe you slide a block or something underneath the right hip. Like I start to cramp a little bit when I do this one. So having extra support under this leg feels really good. Maybe you're doing the sitting variation. Maybe you're doing the standing variation. I just thought of even a fourth option. You could you could work with Janu Shavasana, this posture, bringing one leg in and the other long. So we're opening through the hip, maybe even kind of like trying to line up your foot with the center of your body instead of the other leg. You get a deeper hip stretch. So this is kind of like Warrior Two also. So many options. It's really fun when you start thinking about it like this. So we were doing that other side for quite a while. So we'll try and match the length of time. If you know that you have a tighter side, maybe you always just stay longer on that side, you know. Maybe you add the movements. Inhaling to find your extended side angle, exhaling your reverse. Maintaining your steady breathing, however you're working. You might be surprised that even though you're lying on the ground or sitting in a chair, you're still actually working really hard. So you might get warm. Still be mindful that you're breathing steadily and not holding your breath, or you know, maybe you get out of breath. That's your body telling you to slow down or to take a pause. Let's take about 5 or so more rounds of breath. So once you feel pretty even from left to right, you can come back through any neutral posture and just check in with your breath, check in with your posture. Inhaling, lifting up high through the crown of the head. Exhaling, rooting down while maintaining the integrity of that long spine. So when I say root down, I don't mean slouch down and get really heavy into the ground. I just mean find that pressure through your sits bones, through your feet, rooting you into the earth. Visualizing like there's roots coming out from beneath you. So if there's a big gust of wind, you might kind of shift, but your foundation would stay solid like a tree trunk. Awesome. Might feel good to just like take some intuitive movements, pop your toes, spread your feet wide, spread your fingers wide, flex the wrists, things like that. Maybe a cleansing breath. Okay. So next one we're going into is a spinal balance. So you might know this posture from a hands and knees position. So remember how when we did our cat-cows earlier, I acknowledged that, oh yeah, traditionally we do this from hands and knees. So traditionally, spinal balance is going to look like this. We're going to extend through one leg and extend through the opposite arm. So we're making this long, long line, pressing into the hand, pressing into the top of the back foot, reaching in opposite directions. Very activating posture. So maybe that's what you're doing today. Holding each side, taking breaks when you need to, maybe finding a child's pose. But say you're looking for something less energetic. Say you're someone who isn't able to be on their wrists for that long, or someone who doesn't have the core strength to maintain that posture in a safe way without, hurting joints and things like that. So if you're on the ground, what would the option be? What's the essence of the pose? What are the benefits? There's that lengthening through the spine. There's also strength building. So maybe you choose one of those things. Maybe you choose both. If you're on the ground, you bend your knee, reach through the opposite arm. Press into, flex both feet. So it's like you're pressing into a wall with the right foot. Oh, I'm reaching up. So if it helps you visualize this better, you can do the exact same thing as if you're on the ground. So palming like the ceiling. That might not feel good on the wrist. You can just bring your hand down. You're reaching left arm in line with left ear. You're stretching through the right leg, because remember we're doing opposite limbs. Flex the right foot. The left knee is bent. You can be hugging in any amount. Or maybe, if you want even less, you're setting the left foot down and keeping your knee bent. This can be as active as you'd like. You can flex the foot. You can engage the core. You can hug the belly towards spine. You can spread the fingers wide. If you want less active, slowly release the tension in your body and just maintain this shape. So you're getting the lengthening benefits here. You can choose to get the lengthening and the strengthening by activating core, pressing into the sole of the right foot, reaching really long through the left hand. Maybe you even lift the left leg off the ground and flex that foot or point it. And then switching sides. So lengthening through left leg, reaching through right arm, maybe bending the knee and keeping knee bent with the foot hovering, or maybe setting the foot down. So that's your reclined option. I showed you the kneeling option. There is a seated option as well, of course. You would extend through one leg and then reach through the opposite. You can hold onto your chair with the other arm. You could choose to reach the arm out in front of you, maybe working with some wrist extension and flexion. Rooting down through sits bones, reaching up through the crown of the head, eventually switching sides. Lengthening through the left foot. I like to draw the heel down towards the ground so my foot is flexed, toes pointing up. Rooting down through sits bones, reaching through the arm. Last option could be standing. I'd say that the last option would be the kneeling one, but if you really just want to have fun and play around with these new ways of doing a posture, you can. So it'd be like this. Or wait, like this. Think opposite arms are stretched long. So this is a balancing posture. You even have the arm out in front of you if you really want to mimic the shape. Okay. So taking your last few rounds like that. You're going to go through just one more posture. Feeling free to add in your Sun Salutations, your half Sun Salutations, your full Sun Salutations. Great. So now we're going to work with our last posture of the class. And it's tree pose. So tree pose in the traditional or full expression would look something, well, that's arguable. Full expression, those can look pretty intense. What we are most used to seeing, I think, is something like this. A little kickstand with the leg, arms reaching overhead. Some people bring their foot to the calf. Some people use their hand to bring it up into the inner thigh, finding like a two-way push here. Some people go into the half lotus variation. There's even like a bind where you reach your fingers around and grab your toe. That one's not accessible for me. So, feel free to work with the standing variation of tree pose if you're seeking that energetic, more yang energy. Kind of lost track of bringing the yin and yang in, but anytime I'm talking about a more passive or cooling approach, usually the ones on the ground, but like I said, those can be active too. That's going to be the yin energy that you're inviting. Yang energy is the more active. So maybe you're already deep into this posture and you've got your drishti and you're balancing and you're breathing and you're feeling the heat, you're feeling the activation of glutes, feeling the inner thighs, or the external rotation of the thighs. So I kind of feel like a squeezing in through the inner thighs while also opening and squeezing glutes. So if that's where you're at, awesome, continue. If you're wanting a more cooling approach, if you're wanting to invite more yin energy, where's my block? You can do this from a chair. Finding that kickstand. So this is kind of similar to our warrior two. What are we trying to achieve here? That hip opening, that core stability. Anytime you're sitting in a chair, especially on the edge of the chair, you have to use your core to stay upright in this good posture. If you're not using your core, you start to do this. If you're leaning back, you start to round. So scooting to the front of your chair, sitting up tall, and just beginning to open through the hip any amount. Maybe you extend through one leg and find your tree pose. You could even find it like this, bringing your leg to the inside of the other one while you're sitting. Or you could find like a block or something if you want even deeper, a deeper bend in the knee, so a deeper hip stretch. You could work without the block or a book or whatever you have and just do this kickstand. You could even keep this knee bent if you want less. So that's the seated version. And lastly, the reclined version is going to be just like your standing version, honestly. So you find your mountain pose from a reclined stance, pressing through the soles of the feet. Hands are really wide. And then you can begin to slide the we'll work with the left foot, sole of the left foot, onto the inside of the right leg. So maybe you're doing that kickstand closer to the foot, maybe the ankle, maybe the calf. Maybe you bend really deep into your knee and you get the sole of the foot on the inside of the thigh. You could even do the half lotus from this position too. Arms can be in a T shape. They can be somewhere on the body, hands at heart maybe. Maybe you reach arms into that like Y shape. Overhead, spreading the fingers, growing your branches. Still pressing through the sole of the grounded foot, so the stretched long foot, imagining there's a wall that you're pushing your foot into, or maybe finding a wall and having that activation. To come out of it, you'll lift the knee so it's stacked over the hip, and then set the leg down, sliding it long, and then doing the other side. Opening through the hip, finding whatever variation you'd like, going to the other side when you're ready. So again, maybe you're standing and now you're working with the other side. If you are standing, be really mindful that you're tucking your pelvis forward so there's not a big curve in your low back. Finding a fixed point for your gaze to help you balance. It's called a drishti in Sanskrit. Hands can be at heart. Find some kind of mudra that resonates. And finishing up on this side, doing your best to keep it even left to right. But like I said earlier, maybe you have a side that's always more challenging or tighter. Maybe you stay longer on that side. Great, so coming out of whatever variation you're working with, taking a final sun salutation or half sun salutation or two. We'll meet back in any comfortable seated posture. Maybe you're choosing to stay reclined on the back. We'll bookend our practice with another breathwork exercise, some more pranayama, like our alternate nostril breath. This is another balancing breath, especially if you're a visual person. This one might be really nice for you. It's called square breathing. So basically we're going to inhale for a count of 4, drawing the first line. Hold our breath at the top for a count of 4, drawing the second line. Exhale, count of 4, third line. Hold while we're empty, drawing the fourth line of our square. So we're doing equal parts, drawing a square in the mind. You don't have to work with that visual, but I think it's really helpful in keeping me focused. And this is just another technique for inviting balance, inviting a slowing of your breath, elongating your breath. So wherever you are, maybe take an inhale through the nose, exhale out an open mouth. You can swallow to relax the throat, roll the shoulders up, back, and down. See if you can find softness throughout your whole body. If you're standing or sitting, maintaining the integrity of your long spine. And as you're ready, inhaling through the nose. 2, 3, 4. Hold at the top. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Hold. 2, 3, 4. Inhaling. 2, 3, 4. Stay full. 2, 3, 4. Exhale. 2, 3, 4. Stay empty. 2, 3, 4. Continue counting in your head as you inhale Maybe over time you bring the count to 5 or 6. Maybe you decrease it to 3 or 2. Know if this is triggering any kind of anxiety. To really take care of yourself, release this breath pattern, return to one that's more soothing. In yoga, we talk about inviting challenges, sitting with discomfort. But it's also really important not to force things, not to push yourself. You need to be kind to yourself and honor your past, your current. Really center healing. So if that means opting out of something, that's more than okay. Continuing inhaling, holding, exhaling, holding. The next few minutes will be on your own. If you find that you're becoming ready for Shavasana, your final conscious rest of the practice, you can make your way there now if you're standing or sitting. If you'd rather choose to take a seated meditation in place of Shavasana, you're welcome to stay seated and work with the meditation. Otherwise, allowing this equal part breathing to gently wind you down. Getting there in your own time. If you're at a wall, maybe you take legs up the wall. If you were working with a chair, maybe you come onto your back and bring your legs on top of the chair for some nice support for the low back. Maybe you lay with your arms and legs stretched out, covering up with a blanket or adding any props you might need. And as you find your shape that's going to be the most conducive to relaxation, if you haven't already, you can release that square breath. Maybe you continue for a little while longer to encourage that focus and slowing. But eventually in Shavasana, we want to get to the place where we're doing nothing, where we're really giving ourselves permission to just relax and be. So finding that. You can slowly begin to deepen your breathing, knowing you can stay in Shavasana for longer if you'd like. Otherwise, beginning to invite sensation back into your body. Thank you all so much for allowing me to practice alongside you. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti.